Hard to believe it, but the NHL regular season is right around the corner. Rob Wong with you, joined alongside by national hockey writer for Postmedia, Michael Traikos, to help me preview the upcoming season. And Michael, how about we begin in the Atlantic Division, where Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal will be duking it out all season long. How do you see these three Canadian teams stacking up in the Atlantic?
Well, the Atlantic Division already has talked to a number of players, and they've all said that this is easily the toughest division, and that's coming from players in the Atlantic and outside the Atlantic. And, it makes a lot of sense. You've got Tampa Bay, who's been to the Cup final 3 times in a row. You've got Florida, who is the reigning President's Trophy champs, as the number one team in hockey in the regular season. And then you've got Toronto, Boston, some familiar faces there, and you've got some up-and-coming teams in Ottawa, Buffalo, Detroit, and maybe even Montreal. So, you know what? I think you can easily pencil in Toronto as one of those top 3 teams. I think they're going to be duking it out with Tampa Bay and Florida for that top spot. Already, they are the betting line favorites, along with Florida, to claim the division. That being said, it's not going to come easy. There's no real weak opponent in this division. And I think that really speaks to the rebuild is over in Montreal, or sorry, not Montreal, but the rebuild is over in Ottawa. And I think Buffalo is going to be pushing, and same thing with Detroit. So right off the start, I think Toronto is definitely a playoff team. And you're going to look to Ottawa and Buffalo and Detroit as one of those, 3 teams is going to grab maybe 1, maybe 2 of those wildcard spots. And if I'm putting money on it, I'd say that Ottawa is going to do it. They made a lot of improvements in the offseason. They got Claude Giroux. They picked up Alex DeBrincat, who I think is going to score 40 goals again, and after the season he had in Chicago, and they got a goaltender in Cam Talbot. So, I think Ottawa and Toronto are definitely. I think you can safely say that those are your playoff teams, and then you're expecting Montreal to have a young team. I don't think they're going to be a lottery team this year, but I think it might be too early for them to be a playoff team.
So when it comes to the Maple Leafs, Auston Matthews is always a talking point, and especially now coming off another Rocket Richard season. But Nathan MacKinnon, of course, signing a contract extension in Colorado, now the highest paid player in the league at $12.6 million per season on his new deal. Auston Matthews is going to be up in a couple of seasons here, Michael. What kind of pay bump could we be looking for number 34?
Well, he's going to be the highest paid player in the league, Rob. I think everyone can see that. Until Connor McDavid signs his next contract, I think it's going to be Matthews as the guy who's really setting the bar. And it's not going to be, just slightly above what Nathan MacKinnon's making. I think this guy can really push the envelope if he wants to. And I think that's going to be the question is, does Auston Matthews want to get paid to the point where it's going to hamstring the Maple Leafs even more than they already are this season? And let's not forget, the more money Auston Matthews takes out of the kitty, the less money he's going to have for Kyle Dubas or whoever is running the show by then to go out and get a goaltender, some defense, or even some guys to play with Auston. So it's going to be real difficult because it's not just Matthews that the Leafs have to sign. It's Mitch Marner. It's possibly William Nylander. And like I said, it's a number 1 goalie down the road. So it will be interesting. But I think whether it's $13 million or $15 million, Auston Matthews is going to get his money. It's just a matter of how greedy does he want to be in terms of, does it jeopardize the team from winning a championship?
Now, while Auston Matthews may be under contract for a couple more seasons, Kyle Dubas is heading into the final year of his deal here as general manager of the Maple Leafs. He is obviously on the hot seat at this point. What do you think the future holds for the Maple Leafs GM?
It was really interesting, Rob, because the Leafs go into this season with Kyle Dubas as a lame duck manager. No contract beyond this season. So this is really a make or break season for not only the Maple Leafs, but Dubas as well. And it's not going to be so much, what does Dubas do in this season to kind of make himself not expendable in the Leafs' mind? It's going to be, the pieces that he's already brought to Toronto. And that includes Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov and that includes some of the upgrades or not upgrades on defense, and where really it's just Mark Giordano and Jordy Ben and Victor Mete as the new faces. And a lot of those guys that I just mentioned are really fringe players. But it's really going to be, is this roster capable of, not just getting out of the first round, which they haven't been able to do, but are they capable of winning a championship? And if the answer is yes, and you're looking at this Leaf season, maybe they didn't win a championship, but they won a few rounds and they look like they're on the cusp of something big, well, Dubas is going to get extended. And if it's the same old, well, he, along with Sheldon Keefe and maybe even some core players, are going to be heading out the door. That's that critical of a season for Toronto.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking lots more about the blue and white coming up later this season. As always, you can find Michael's work at Postmedia, and you can find him on Twitter at Michael_Traikos.